Right, today the world will say goodbye to the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. As well as a private family ceremony, a televised public memorial service will be held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, where the likes of Mariah Carey and Stevie Wonder are expected to perform in his honor. Now, while the police fear up to 700,000 ticketless fans could defy warnings and turn up, two of Michael's closest friends have chosen to stay away. Dame Elizabeth Taylor apparently wants to mourn in private, while legendary producer Quincy Jones has said, "I won't go to any more funerals as long as I live. After Ray Charles and Marvin Gaye, I can't handle it." But is attending someone's funeral the only way to really say goodbye and move on?
Well, I suppose it's showing respect to go to the funeral and to publicly say goodbye, but I can kind of understand what Quincy Jones is saying and Elizabeth Taylor, because, you know, funerals in no way are nice, and I find it really difficult to show emotion. I find it difficult to really cry in public, so the whole funeral thing for me all day, because I want to sob, is that, like, all day I'm holding it all together, you know, and so they are really, really hard for me, and I do think you can mourn somebody in private, and you can say your own little private goodbye to somebody. But I realise that for some people that would be disrespectful. Yeah,
I think that. I think you've got to put aside how you feel, and, you know, perhaps for the person's family, you know, you've got to just show up. You know, no one wants to be at a funeral. It's a horrible experience, but I do think it's important to pay your respects and do your duty and stuff. I mean, I know they're grim by their very nature, but I do think they get exacerbated by some of the traditions. You know, the slow procession by hearses and the funeral cars when they're going at 5–10 miles an hour. I do think this is just prolonging the agony. I wish it wasn't quite as grim as it is.
No, I don't know. I said yesterday, actually, I would never go to the funeral of anyone that I didn't know or hadn't met. You know, however much of a fan I was, I just wouldn't. And I wouldn't feel right there. But, you know, I think, you know, the fans, if they want to be there, they feel like they've got to say goodbye, that's fair enough. But with funerals, if you know someone and they've invited you by the family's invited you, I think it would be really rude not to go. And I do think that sometimes people are selfish, like, I can't handle it, I'm not going to go and pay my respects to my friend. You know, and I know each to their own and all that, but I don't know. I would go if I was invited. I would feel it as more of a duty, I think, rather than, you know, a choice.
It's interesting because Elizabeth Taylor seems to be saying that she doesn't think this funeral is all about Michael. She was sort of described it as a hoopla, and I think that's the point. If the funeral really is all about the person that's died, which very often, sadly, they're not. They're more about what the family want or what other people want. You know, then the funeral can be fantastic, and you don't have to have all those traditions and, you know, sort of, you know, very sad. And my dad's funeral, a lot of people after that were saying, you know, best party I've been to for ages, which sounds ridiculous at the time, but because he knew he was dying, he had planned it, and he actually took a huge amount of pleasure, bizarrely, planning it and, you know, thinking of funny and wacky things, and nobody must wear...
It easier for you as well.
We didn't have to think, exactly, because we knew what to do, and he said, you know, he wanted me and my sister to read poems, very funny poems, that he'd written himself, and I was heavily pregnant at the time, and I remember saying, Dad, I won't be able to manage it, but actually, because I had to focus on doing something, that really got me through it.
My brother-in-law's funeral was like that, because him and Linda used to discuss what they would want at their funerals, and it sounds morbid, but it brought so much comfort, because when he died, which was terrible and we were devastated, but she knew what he wanted, and it was all stuff like that. He didn't want anyone in black, didn't want anyone to wear black. He wanted people to be able to be there and smile and laugh, because that's what he made people do. And it was actually, as funerals go, it seems, like you say, ridiculous when you go, actually, it was the best funeral I've ever been to, but it was brilliant.
It's quite a gift, actually, to do that, isn't it? It's quite a gift to do that for the people that you leave behind, so that they don't have to.
If you can celebrate someone's life rather than just be, you know, and everybody's got to mourn, but to be so mournful at a kind of, you know, situation like that. I mean, it's different, depends who's died, doesn't it? When my mum died, you know, there was no party atmosphere about it at all, and, you know, we didn't know what she wanted at all, and the worst thing about that was just having to go about doing all of those things, like choosing coffins, you know, for someone that you just, you know, you don't want to be dead.
And at that time, by its very nature, you're in the worst possible state of mind to make all those important decisions. So if there's any way of working out in advance what that person wants, it just takes away all that responsibility, and you can just get on with celebrating them.
Now, something else we should remember today is that, of course, it's the 7th of July, so it's 4 years to the day that London was attacked by terrorists, killing 52 people. A memorial to the victims will be officially unveiled today in Hyde Park, consisting of 52 stainless steel pillars, one for each victim. Certainly a day that we'll never forget, and I think it's one of those days where you always remember where you were when you first heard. I know I was actually in Scotland working for GMTV, reporting on the G20, and Live 8 was about to happen at Murrayfield. In fact, most of the team were in Scotland, and then it happened, and it was a huge scramble to try and get back to base kind of thing.
I have to say, I think that memorial is really quite striking and really good. You know, we're not very good at things like that, and I think that's a really, really good one. I remember where I was walking through London, and at almost exactly the time it happened, suddenly all I could hear was sirens everywhere. And you hear them all the time in London anyway, but there were so many. Yeah. I phoned up my friend, I went, something's going on, something's happening, what's happened? So she put on the news and told me what was going on.
It was the most amazing day when I was working for LBC at the time, the London radio station, and it was a day where Londoners just came together. It's a sort of cliche, but it was so true. And I remember the traffic was incredibly bad, so I ended up walking to the radio station, and the cars were all at a standstill, and it was quite a hot day, so all the windows were down, and you could just hear the radio, whether it's BBC London or LBC, all blaring out, everybody trying to exchange information, find out what was going on, everybody trying to help each other. It was a really amazing day. That was very comforting, how people came together, I thought.
Yeah, I was at home, I saw it all happen on the news, obviously there's the news flashes and all of that, and it was that moment of just fear and horror. And then, you know, you're watching it and it's like unreal when you're away from it. When you're not in London, you're somewhere else. It's like something from a horror movie. And then I remember thinking of all the people I knew who lived in London. You know, you're trying to text them to see if they're all right, and of course you couldn't get through really to anyone. And it was just that feeling of, oh God, you know, I can't stand this again. You know.
I think Carol's right. I think the memorial is really lovely, because I think it's great when you can walk around something like that and you can read, because it's got the dates on it, and you know, when people, you know, kids would be, you know, intrigued to look at it and, you know, find out what it is and remember the day. I think it's stunning.
And of course our thoughts are with all the victims' families today. Don't forget